I'm Jose,
I'm Leeann.
and we are Two Most Wanted. Hi, welcome. Welcome to another episode. Today's a very special episode because I am writing solo. Leeann's not here today. She is working in Texas or Florida, or she's traveling between states and working. So she's not here, so it's just me today, and it's really weird. It's really weird. I've actually recorded this intro probably 7 times because it just felt really weird to be talking to myself. I'm an only child. I'm used to talking to myself, but when you know other people are going to hear it, that's kind of weird. So this is weird, but bear with me. I promise it won't be too long. But interesting topic for today is kind of on brand, because we all do it. And sometimes we do it by default, sometimes we do it to a fault, sometimes we feel like it is our fault, is when we burn out and why we burn out. And it all comes down to hustle culture, right? This whole idea of we have to be on top, we have to be on the ball, we have to be on something apparently to succeed or feel like we succeed. And for me, it's very poignant, and also for Leeann. I mean, she's doing it right now. She's working, she's hustling, right? We all are. And for me, it's been on my mind for a very long time. For the past couple years, actually, there has been this thing where I have no rhyme or reason as to why, until now, of why I'm so tired. Why is it that I feel so lethargic? Why is it that I feel like I don't kind of give a fuck? And not in the empowering kind of way, but I mean in the sense that, I want to stay at home on my couch. I don't want to go outside, but I also do. And especially now that I'm entering this or re-entering, going out there and dating. And we've talked about this on the pod since the inception of the first episode of dating and why I'm still single. And a quick refresher course for those who are just listening for the first time. Hi, I'm Jose. I am a freelance. Well, yeah, I feel like I freelance everything, but I am an aspiring actor and filmmaker whose survival job is being a slave to hospitality. But that being said, I've always said how single I've been, and now that I'm re-entering dating, and most of you are thinking, why is that? And it's because I spent a lot of my adult life working and hustling. And in my case, it's trying to get a project off the ground, right? A project that I've been working on for 13 years. Now, that may not sound like a lot or long, but keep in mind, I'm 40. I've been working on this project for the entirety of my 30s. I was working on this project, and I kind of shelved away my social life and stifled it because I was working creatively. And to add further insult to injury, I have no sense of time. And so to me, it didn't feel like 10 years had gone by, and much less 13. And my social life took a hit for that, and primarily my dating life, not really my social life. I still socialize with people, but because during my 30s is where I accumulated my friends who work in film, who currently work in film, and even at that time. So I was still involved in my craft in some kind of way, and so I still had a social life. But dating really took a hard back seat because I focused on my career and the foundation that I'm laying for my career, because I have my foot is not in the door. It's more of carving a path for myself to get to that door, if that makes sense. Anyway, all of this has been heavy on my mind because not necessarily the why of why we hustle or for what we hustle. I think those are pretty obvious, right? You want to attain something, there is hard work involved, you do it. And with hard work comes certain sacrifices. The question is, where's the breaking point? Where is the rest? What is the recuperation that has to take place after you've hustled or during the hustle, right? When do you know it's enough? And I'm learning what my threshold should be. It's tough because obviously, well, not obviously, because I haven't obviously said it, but I'm not trying to push myself to a breaking point where my body and my mind specifically, because that's really where I feel most affected, is mentally, psychologically, rather than physically tired and burnt out. Physically, I feel fine. Mentally is when I just don't, I do have that lethargic, in almost indifference, not really indifference, but a form of indifference towards a lot of things. And more importantly, I'm feeling creatively stifled and not enthused as I once was. And that's the part that is kind of concerning to me on some level. But I found a new perspective in a way that I did not expect. And I will tell you what that is. I was on the gram and I think it was a news outlet or something, but it basically talked about how a lot of people have been turning to I think it's Chat GPT, one of the AI systems, as a form of therapy. In other words, going to them and treating these AI systems like a therapist and trying to get these answers, right? And it's a very slippery slope based on what they're saying. In other words, it seems like it will agree with you. It could be dangerous. It's obviously not a person, doesn't have a form of empathy and so on and so forth. And my relationship with AI is very interesting because it's very matter of fact. I'm a very matter of fact person, very black and white. I rarely live in the gray area. And so for me, I use ChatGPT as a search engine, really. If I'm looking for a recipe, if I'm looking for a bit of information, if I'm writing a story and I need a reference, or if I need to know who this person is and what this person attributed to whatever, I don't know, society or project or what have you, that's really what I use ChatGPT for, because I don't want to filter through the Google system and all the websites to then cross-reference. And no, give me the answer that I'm looking for, and then I'll go ahead and deduce the source and so on and so forth. And so that's what I use it for. So to hear that people are using it as a form of therapy, first of all, to me, highlighted how expensive therapy is. As someone who I understand therapy, I'm all for it. However, it is expensive. I've had a therapist years ago when I was going through my bout with anxiety and panic attacks in my 20s. And I had a therapist, and it was great. It was comforting to be able to talk to somebody who kind of understood what was happening to you. But as I've gotten older, it's really expensive. Leeann has a therapist, and it's just expensive. It's just something that, especially living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, New York City, there's so much that, you're paying for a fucking $12 fucking sandwich at the bodega. You know what I mean? How much is an Uber to get across town? My arm, my fucking leg. That's how much it cost. So I can only imagine, filtering all this through financially, and then you need a therapist. Like, I think, yeah. So anyway, what I found fascinating was people treating this, as a therapist. And I thought, what would that answer be? What would happen? Let's try it out. And granted, I used it with a grain of salt, right? I'm not going to dictate my life after it. It's something to potentially give you some insight or something of the sort, and which it did. So I went ahead and I prompted the session, I guess, if you will. Basically, I was very thorough. I basically stated, what's been on my mind, what are the obstacles, and I noted many obstacles. One of them being that I know why I feel stifled. I know why I feel creatively stifled because I haven't worked on anything new per se. As in my mind, I'm a creative producer. I'm always writing something. I'm always coming up plot for a script, for a story, for a narrative, for something. I'm always essentially working. But this particular project that I worked on, this pilot that I worked 13 years on, that's a particular story that, I put all my eggs in that basket. And I understood why I was creatively tired. But I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I felt like I was in this weird gray area that I just didn't want to be in anymore. And I wanted to figure out a solution, right? It's not so much figure out the why, but it's more figuring out how to move forward. And once I went ahead and I put in that prompt, Chat GPT, who I've lovingly called Chatty, Chatty tells me something that was really insightful. And it said something roundabout, I'm just, paraphrasing here, that you have to really look how far you've come. Look at the accomplishments you've made. You were able to finish this project. You've molded it into what you want it to be. Yes, it's been a very long journey and it has broken you on some way, but you've rebuilt yourself every time you've broken down. And look at all the insight. You have come out differently than the way you came in. And you perhaps are not where you want to be in your career, but just know that you've laid a solid foundation. Granted, this is paraphrasing, this is not a quote, but it gave me great insight in a way that I did not expect. I really didn't have any expectations of what the answer would be. But that answer was really like, it changed my mood. It really, really changed my tune. I don't know any other way to say it. It gave me great insight. It made me feel a lot better because I had to stop and think about it and thought, you know what? Yes, it's right. I have made huge progress. Not anyone can say that they've accomplished what I have in that regard. Whether you think it's good, bad, or indifferent, but I've done it. And I should be proud of that. And it's funny how I didn't think of that at all because my mind kept thinking, well, what next? We have to continue working on this. We have to continue moving forward. What is the next thing we need to do? And I had to stop and be present. And it's something that I've constantly had to do as a recovering what-ifer. Hello, my name is Jose, and I've been a recovering what-ifer for the past 10 years. To be mindfully present can be a challenge at times. And when I say mindfully present, it's not just thinking in the moment, but thinking what you have and how grateful you should be for those things because you have them in that moment, right? It reminds me a lot of when I would go through anxiety and panic attacks in my 20s. That was prompted by September 11th because I lived through it. I was there. But that's a whole other story for another day. But going through anxiety, particularly, it was interesting that I would have anxiety about anxiety. I would get an anxiety attack because I was worried about having anxiety. I know, sounds crazy, but I did. And at some point, I had to learn to have a mental checklist. So when I would have anxiety and I would feel that not stillness, is quite the opposite, the rattling feeling in your chest and your emotions, I would immediately go down a mental checklist of like, okay, we have a roof over our head, we have food on the fridge, we're looking stunning. There's nothing to be worried about. Or if there is, that checklist helps you get to that, pinpoint what exactly is bothering you. And so flash forward to, getting this answer and realizing the question isn't really why we hustle, because I couldn't answer that, because I'm born and raised in New York City. My life has been an entire hustle. And you're born and bred to understand that, especially in this city, right? I understand now the reputation that New York City has had as being its own country, as being its own world, right? It's so separated from the rest of the country being the US. It's its own thing, and I get it now. And it is, a lot of the sayings are true, right? You make it here, you can make it anywhere. And I'm like, yeah, because you have to bust your ass to really. I can see why people move here and then move out because they don't like it. They don't like the energy. They don't like the way things run here. But because as someone as that doesn't know any different, that is, this is my body of water. I'm a fish to this water. It is second nature for me to be 3 steps ahead, to chop chop, move out of the fucking way. You're in my way, and I know that's rude, but my brain works that way. It's just aggressive. And you have to be aggressive in this city in order to get what you not only want but need at times, right? And that instills that hustle culture. I don't know if that's the same for other metropolis cities like Chicago or LA. It's funny how there's this East Coast, West Coast thing, especially when it comes to film, of how people are so laid back in LA. Very much of let's get together, we'll do something, and nothing ever gets done, right? I've felt that, I've seen that, I've experienced that, and it's interesting. Sorry for the dead air. I just had like a brain fart. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, how different is it? And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty different. But anyway, that hustle culture, I just don't know any different. My brain is always on. My brain is always on to the next thing. It's always working on something. It's always on this. I know perfection doesn't exist, but getting something to as good as it can be. And you kind of couple all of that together and it will burn you the fuck out. And so I've reached that. And the the breaking point on that was finishing this project that I've been working on for 13 years. And like I said, it stifled my social life a little bit in my 30s. I hated my 20s. My 20s, I was in relationships, 2 relationships, and I was learning from that. I was rebuilding from that because I was broken as a person. And I got myself together. I got myself to a place that I was healed. And now I wanted to work on myself career wise. I hit that quarter crisis that everyone doesn't talk about for some bizarre fucking reason. Hit my quarter crisis and I realized I have nothing to show for this creatively, career wise. I've been wanting to do film and television and acting since I was 8, but I was always afraid. I didn't have anyone who was in this industry. So I had no example. I knew that I would have to carve my own path. And that just felt impossible. So quarter crisis happens. I'm not fully healed. I mean, we're always fixing ourselves and always healing. But I was at a place secure enough that I thought, well, let's start this career that we've always dreamt of doing. And that's where it started. And then shortly after, I created this pilot, this series that I created, that I wrote, and it was off to the races. And because I have no sense of time, not realizing that 13 years had gone by to finish this. And granted, the ups and downs of this project, much like any other project in this field, is a roller coaster of emotions, right? And the worst part about it was that I went at it alone. And to give you a very long story short, I have this project, I wrote this, and I had a cast and crew that I was going to work with. I worked with the cast, but the crew unfortunately didn't because they said that my script was too ambitious to do. to take part in. And granted, at the time, no one was getting paid because I didn't have a job in film. I didn't know anybody in film. I just had my little survival job working at a cafe, and at the time I was going to school, studying dance. And I told myself, well, you know what? If they don't want to take part, which I respectfully, accept, I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm going to take initiative. I feel like I can creatively do it. And of course, that is the classic case of biting off more than you can chew. And that's what I did. And then I worked on this film. I was in it. I was part of the cast. I directed it. I produced it. I wrote it. I did the visual effects. I did all the post work. Like basically what you assume a studio or a small crew of people of, let's say, I don't know, 10 people to work on a project. I did by myself, every facet of it. And I would love to say that it was by choice. I would love to say that it was because, yeah, I got this in the bag because I'm that fucking talented. No, it was a learning process as I went along. I've always been the type of creative that I know when I like something and I'm very tenacious to want to do it, but the technical jargon I don't really know, so I had to figure that out along the way. So I like to say that this 13-year process was more like the world's longest film internship because I certainly learned a lot of my craft, and really laid a solid foundation to where I am now as an actor, as a filmmaker. And throughout this entire process, I broke down many times, whether it was because I was on the verge of losing my life's work because of my computer crashing or something like that. Things like that where you feel like your world's coming to an end, especially when you've given what you feel like is your life to this thing. And from breaking down, you rebuild yourself. And I've done that so many times. What is it? You've kind of like that phoenix kind of, I don't know, fucking thing of the phoenix where it dies and it rises from the ashes. Like, I don't know the metaphor, but you get what I mean. I'm a fucking bird is basically what I'm saying. An exotic bird. I've done that so many times. And I've been hurt so many times, rejected through it so many times. And granted, this entire business is rejection. I get it. That doesn't make it any more palpable that I get it. But that being said, 13 years gone by, burnt out, and still believing in my project, still believing in my craft. At some point, one would think that, well, if you had no passion for this, would you still want to do it? And my answer is yes. There's not a minute, not a day that goes by in which I don't tell myself, I still want to be there. I still want to make films. I still want to do the damn thing. Creatively, of course. Because it's not for the riches. If I wanted the riches, I'd go do something else. And I've had many opportunities to do something else. So to me, that kind of proved that I belong here, that I belong, and I want to do this because I have a passion for it. But then you couple that. So imagine going through these 13 years of working on a project that you have devoted your life to by your single self. But then on top of that, imagine you still have to have a survival job because otherwise how else would you, right? How else would I film practically a feature film, essentially, without the aid of having another job to help pay my rent or my livelihood or something? And then the stresses that come along with those survival jobs that I have to take into account that not everybody has this kind of duality. In other words, people who work in the arts and they have to have a survival job. What does that mean? Survival job is basically what it entails. It's a job in which I need to survive with because what I do creatively, unfortunately, does not pay my bills. And that is a harsh reality and a truth of that craft, of that path. The idea is that I would love to do my job creatively and make a living off of it. so that I am comfortable, but more importantly, financially secure. But that's not in the cards for everybody. And I have to be really mindful and realistic about that. So that's why we have a safety net, a survival job. In my case, it's always been working in hospitality, whether it's bartending, serving, managing, literally all of it. I've done it all, and I favor none of it. It's kind of funny, having done hospitality practically all of my adult life, from working from nightclubs to hotels to cocktail bars to dive bars, so on and so forth. The last place that I worked at, oh, the last place that I'm working at right now, I used to manage. And at some point, someone asked me, why is it that you could be a bartender, you could do this, you could do that at the place? And I thought, no, I've done all of that, and I hate all of that because it's mentally draining. It's mentally draining to be behind a bar and people ask you a bunch of stupid questions, or not even stupid question. Let me not be cynical. Let me not be a typical cynical New Yorker and just say stupid questions, but ask you, I don't know, questions that aren't stupid. I just didn't want to talk. I wanted to do my job and go home. I didn't want to expel any more energy that I was already expelling in my craft, but now also at this job. So I thought, well, managing should cover that, right? And no, 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 it's not. It's actually quite the opposite. Managing is it's exhausting. It's equally exhausting, if not more, because you get paid less than your fellow counterparts, i.e., bartenders and servers. So, working a survival job takes a mental and emotional toll solely for a fucking paycheck, especially nightlife and hospitality, where you're working the worst hours. You're going in the afternoon, you're getting out at midnight. Being that it's New York City, you're getting out late. Trains are a shit show. I don't know if you've ever been to New York, but don't bother. It's not worth it. Trains are shit. Ubers are equally expensive to get home. Like taking an Uber across town is almost like $50. That's, I don't know how many Popeyes chickens those are, but many of the Popeyes and many of the chickens. That is just not worth it. And then you're getting home, and much like myself, I was never the type to come home and like go to bed immediately. So I'm up for a couple of hours. Like if I get out of work at 12, I get home 1:30. From 1:30, I'm not going to bed until 4 or 5. I can't come home and just knock the fuck out. I'm not a robot. I have to decompress somehow. And the crazier thing is decompressing from what? Talking to people at work? Yeah, because people are exhausting. And already I am a loner. I've always been a loner. I've kind of somewhat been antisocial. Not really. I'm not really antisocial, but I certainly do love my alone time. And I love listening rather than speaking in a way, which is why today's episode is very weird to me, and I've recorded it 3 times already because I just felt weird just talking to myself, or to just myself, I guess. The idea of getting out super late, overstimulation, undersleeping has a clear effect on your nervous system. It's not healthy. And in my case, I've worked out my work schedule, my survival job work schedule, that I work only 3 days a week because I'm not dedicating 5 days. I'm not dedicating any more time than I have to, but yet I still need to pay my life for my life, unfortunately. And so when you have these nightlife jobs, because essentially it is a nightlife, even though it's not a nightclub, your day, it hinders on your days off too, because now you're going to bed at these awful hours. You're waking up, half of the day is gone, even though I still, crazily enough, I still manage to sleep my 7 hours every single day, regardless of what time I actually go to bed. I'm still sleeping 7 hours, but that still takes away precious daytime from me, right? So I'm realizing that all of this is taking a toll. Like somehow now at 40, now that I've been able to self-reflect and grow as a person, everything that I did in my 20s that I've healed from and I'm healing from in my 30s, but then also the foundation of what I've done in my career, or rather laid the foundation for my career. I've solidified that. And now I'm at a place where, do I need to do all of this? Hustle, I mean. Working these crazy hours, working these survival jobs, and dealing, I feel like I should be able to lighten the load a little bit. And I realized something that was real, or I didn't realize. Well, yeah, I guess I did. Sorry, I'm having a mental conversation now to myself. I came across the fact that I'm going to be debt free in like a month. And I was in about like $15,000 in debt, not from school, just fucking credit cards because I'm a ding dong. But $15,000 in debt, and we're in August now. Happy August, happy Pride. Come September, I am going to be debt free. Now that is something that I can't. It is not even settling in my brain right now that I'm going to be debt free. Like it's wild to me. The last time I was debt free was actually during COVID. I know this is a hot button thing, but remember those stimulus checks that we had? So I basically paid my debt with those stimulus checks. Paid all of my debt. And then I racked it up because, again, like I said, I was a ding dong. And so now to have a second chance at it and be debt free, I realize I'm like, oh, I don't have to work the survival job anymore. I still have to have a survival job because, you know, but I don't have to do this nightlife thing. I can have a regular job now. I don't know what that job is, right? Because I've not had a regular job in fucking decades. Decades? A decade, really. Decade and a half. But it lifted this weight off of my shoulder of being debt free, but also I don't have to work this fucking job. Oh my God. I'm wet. You know what I mean? But that hustle culture still lingers in the back of my head. It still lingers in the back of my head. And I'm trying to cultivate that to be a healthier emotion, healthier tactic, healthier part of my life. I love when I hustle. Not gonna lie to you. Again, could be because as a native New Yorker, that's all I know. That's what I live and breathe. I love it. I love. But I have to learn to have it be healthy. And I'm learning that. So one thing that to me, I think it's unhealthy. One unhealthy aspect of my hustle culture, my hustleism, is that I feel really guilty when I have a lazy day. This past weekend, I had 3 days off and I spent it with my friends. Literally. I don't do that. I rarely do that. Crystal knows this best. I see Crystal like every other weekend. We don't see each other all the time, as much as I would love to, but we don't. This past weekend, I saw all of my friends, most of my friends, consecutively, like for 3 consecutive days, going out, going to eat. Drank a little too much, which I shouldn't have, but that's a whole other story. Point is that I felt guilty a couple days ago because I thought, well, I'm not working. I'm not writing something. As a writer, as a creative producer, I'm always writing. I'm always working. I'm always reading something. I'm always watching something. I'm always learning something to apply to then create with. And I didn't do any of that. And I felt so guilty. I felt bad, but then I realized why. You're with your friends. You're having a great time. You're socializing. This is what you want, right? And I'm like, yes, I do. I do want all of those things. I do want to socialize. I do want to be with my friends. So why is it that I feel so guilty for not performing, for not pushing myself? And I realized it came down to that. It was that it's not having a healthy relationship with my hustle culture, with my with that side of me that I love. And I don't want to be that kind of person that has that mental thought of like, well, if you rest, you rust, right? I don't want to have that. That's not clearly healthy. I want to be able to sit on my couch and watch Netflix or something and not be so hard on myself because I feel like I'm quote unquote wasting time. I'm just resting. I just want to rest. So I have to redefine that mindset. I have to redefine it, and I'm doing that now, right? I have to really look at I have to really look at how I approach things and how I go into things and realizing what should that look like? What does that healthy relationship with myself, with my working self look like? Because I don't think I'll ever not work and never not want to work because there's so many things that I want to accomplish. And I understand that with hard work comes sacrifice. And now I have to redefine what that sacrifice is. What is it that I'm willing to sacrifice? And understanding that my free time, whether it's with my friends or even with myself, is not a sacrifice. It is a balance and a necessity. And so I'm in this kind of creative recovery right now where I'm slowly allowing myself to not be so hard on myself and giving myself, affording myself that freedom to enjoy my downtime, to enjoy relaxation so that I can recover creatively. I've had these kind of experiences when I would take breaks from editing my project because when you stare at something for too long, it starts to bleed together. Kind of like when someone says a word too, not too much, when they repeat a word and then it just doesn't sound like a word anymore. You know, it's kind of like that. You get that kind of mental fatigue. And I would get that kind of fatigue when I was working on my project. So I would take breaks and I would watch other films. I would watch other things that would inspire me and give me a little creative reset, a little creative recovery, if you will. And realize that rest isn't a reward, it's a requirement. And the same way that I found the necessity of sleeping my 7 hours a day, it isn't, it is a luxury for sure, but it's a requirement. I make time for that. I make time for that. If I'm going to be late to work because I slept 7 hours, I'm not going to get mad at that because my body is first and my body has to sleep. So it's an interesting thing. And it's funny to think that this all started with ChatGPT because if it weren't for that, it really would have not given me the perspective that I got from all of this kind of clarity in a way. Um, it's interesting. I'm as shocked as you are if you're shocked. If you're not shocked, then go on with your day. Kudos to you. I am bewildered, but grateful at the same time because it pointed things out to me that was just right there in the open, just kind of obvious. And now I see clearly now. Oh my God, there's a song about that, isn't there? I don't know the song. I'm not gonna sing it. I don't know it. But yeah, I'm so what are the lessons of today? The lessons today is that I'm not broken. I'm healing and I'm learning to rest without asking permission. And I'm also redefining hustle. What is hustle for me? What does that mean? What do I want from it? And and I think it's something that I'm never gonna stop doing. And not because I'm a creative or I or that, whatever. I think a lot of it has to do because I was born and raised in New York City, where that is the culture of this city, right? As much as the same way that we can smell bullshit from a mile away, we will always be on. We will always have this hustle within us to survive, to get the job done, to accomplish the task. But maybe pump the brakes a little bit. It kind of reminds me of when I first went to, I think it was LA for the first time. And I realized how laid back LA was. I was kind of looking around. I remember we went to a mall on a Sunday and they were like, it is so busy. And I looked around and I'm like, it is dead. Like, what are you talking about? They're like, no, for us, this is busy. And I'm like, that's insane. Or walking down the street or something and me like power walking. I'm like, wait, I have to just slow down. I literally have nowhere to, I mean, I have somewhere to go, but I mean, I don't have to like run there. So the same way that I dialed it back when I go, like now I go to LA and I'm like, I love going to LA, not for the reasons one might think. I love of how laid back it is. I know a lot of people bitch about it because it's a little too laid back, but for someone like me, it is relaxation. When I go to other countries, I don't go to major cities for the most part. I like to go to countrysides and things like that, like smaller cities. Because why would I find vacation? Why would I thrive in another metropolis? Except for like Paris. I love Paris. It was honestly better than New York. I'm not gonna lie to you. They have a nice work-life balance going on over there. And they got the fresh cheese and the wine. Yeah. Way better. But yet even there, I mean, granted, I didn't live there, and I certainly didn't work there. But from one city dweller to another, you can feel the energy, the electricity that exists there. But yet, here, I'm fucking on. I'm just like, all right, hitting the ground running. And I just have to realize that I don't have to hit everywhere running. I can gently step off the plane and do a little shimmy, a little shake, and walk that little tarmac. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm sorry, this isn't making any sense. This is why I shouldn't be left alone, because this is what happens. Okay, well, I don't know how to end this. Usually I have Leeann to help me end this, but it's just me, and I'm gonna end it like we always end it, and goodbye. Thank you for watching. We put out new visual episodes every Friday right here on YouTube. And if you want to listen a week earlier, tune in every Tuesday on Spotify under 2 Most Wanted. And remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Or just watch one of our older videos. I suggest the one about kink, because why not? It's Friday. It's your weekend. Do you? Yes, do it. Do it now. Thank you.